This an all-out blitz, real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede. This an all.
Hey guys, how's it going? Today's going to be a different type of podcast because I don't have my co-host with me right now. Crenshaw should be joining us in a little bit, and hopefully Matt gets his Wi-Fi back. So today was supposed to be the battle between Leo, if you know him on Twitter, that's Leo is Forgiven. Unfortunately, he got a little ill. Let's hope that he's doing well. Just keep him in your thoughts. Looks like he's got a little bit of flu or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some NFL news, and we'll start there. And then by the time that we finish that, we'll actually have our guest, Mike Patton, who writes and does a podcast for touring the AFC South. So we will have a guest later on. He'll be on in about 25 minutes or so. And by then we should see Matt. Here's Coach Dante. Hey, Coach Dante. Yeah, today the Lord was against us. Let me tell you, between Leo getting sick, Matt losing his Wi-Fi, Crenshaw having an issue, the Lord was against us today. But nonetheless, the show must go on. So I'm going to start with some NFL news, and hopefully we'll have Mike on here soon, and then Crenshaw a little later. So the first thing that is quite interesting is about Baker Mayfield, right? Baker Mayfield was able to start for the Rams, and he basically led a 98-yard touchdown that won them the game. He was there for less than 48 hours, and he was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. I think that's amazing. I think that the ability for not just Baker Mayfield, because it wasn't obviously just him, but the entire team, the ability for his coaching staff, yes, I said coaching staff, to actually be able to put him in a position to keep the playbook small and actually be able to take the Rams to a win is pretty amazing. Now, that's something that is quite foreign for us because, unfortunately, our coaching staff doesn't necessarily do that. And when we get Mike Patton and Crenshaw on here, we'll talk more about the game, the Cowboys game. But until then, I'm just going to go through a little more NFL news for you guys. So one of the other things that we saw today was, unfortunately, the Cardinals GM, Steve Keim, has announced that he's taking a leave of absence because of his health. So that is sad to hear because they did stress that it's health-related absence. So obviously, it's got to be somewhat serious. I would say that I hope it's not serious, but it definitely seems like it is if he's taking indefinite leave of absence. So again, we'll send him our thoughts and prayers, and hopefully he'll get better. But we do find that quite interesting. Another interesting thing right now is the Dolphins have not been doing very well recently. Up until recently, Tua has actually been doing quite well. Now he's going to have to play in really cold weather, and he hasn't been doing well. This is going to be a problem for Tua. Why are they not doing well? This is an issue, and this is all what's been discussed, is Tua going to be able to perform right now on Sunday with the cold weather? I don't think so. Going through some more news. So today we had some interesting news with Micah Parsons. So Micah Parsons is obviously a beast. Although Laramie Tunsil was able to keep him at bay, we did not get a single sack against us at the Cowboys. So props to King Tunsil Just want to give him a shout out and say that you did a great job. But Michael Parsons had some comments today. He said that Jalen Hurts does not look like an MVP. So that is an interesting concept because I think that most people would say that right now, if you're looking at MVP, and obviously if we're sticking to quarterbacks, it's most likely Jalen Hurts, and you can throw Mahomes in there. Although Mahomes had 3 interceptions the last game against the Broncos, he hasn't been doing too well. So for Micah Parsons to say that he doesn't think Jalen Hurts is MVP material is sort of throwing shade out there without anything to back that up. So I can't buy that, honestly. So let's see. Yeah, I agree. So Facebook user here says Jalen should be the clear favorite. I agree. I think it's interesting that he was being talked about that he might lose his job this year. He went from losing his job to being an MVP candidate. For Michael Parsons to say that, I think he's just throwing shade. I don't know what it is, whether it's jealousy or not. Maybe it's just something that Cowboys do. Hey, I don't know. But it is what it is. In other news, Juju Smith, he just paid off $10,000 in Christmas gifts. So he went around and basically there are a bunch of people that have their gifts on layaway and he basically paid their gifts. So you have NFL players that are doing really great things around in the community. And my old boy Hop, I'm actually wearing his jersey right now. I still wear his jersey, even though I just bought Jalen Petrie's. I was wearing that on Sunday. But my boy Hopkins, for Thanksgiving, he went out and delivered turkeys. He served them food. There are definitely NFL athletes that are still believing in the community and are still doing great things. So I think that's important to address and just say with all of the stuff they hear, because there's a lot of negative that, especially in the time of the holidays, it's important to realize that there are a bunch of athletes that are actually doing something for the community. Another comment here says, again, I think this is the same user, but I can't see his name here because it says Facebook user. It says, Titans fan said AJ was going to play with the bum quarterback compared to Tannehill. Well, yeah, losing that quarterback is definitely hard. And I see Mike just arrived and bounced. Mike, if you're watching, if you could come back, that'd be great. Unfortunately, I was not able to add you there. Hey, how's it going? Are you there, Mike? Can you hear me? Yep. We're getting this together, guys. Give us a moment.
I hear you, but I think I know why I can't hear you. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I sure can.
All right, cool. Yeah, I didn't have my headphones connected. I thought I did.
No problem whatsoever.
Yeah, I see where somebody said Titans fan said AJ was going to play with the bum QB compared to Tannehill. Interesting.
Yeah, we were just talking about how Michael Parsons threw some shade on Jalen Hurts, and basically said that he doesn't think that he's MVP material. But before we get to the rest of the news, let me introduce you because this is kind of a weird show because I don't have my co-hosts on here, and we were also supposed to do a battle. So why don't you introduce yourself to everyone that's watching live?
All right. My name is Mike Patton. I am the host of Touring the AFC South podcast, of course, the AFC South as well. And also I am a freelance journalist.
Awesome. Okay, so we will talk a little bit more about NFL news, and in a little bit, we'll switch over to just talking about the games. And I believe Crenshaw said that he should be here in about 15, 20 minutes. So hopefully he can jump on. Just so you know, and so for the people that are watching, the Lord was against us today. Let me tell you, Leo, who I'm supposed to battle with, to talk about the topic, which was should Lovie Smith be fired or not, and Pep Hamilton, he got sick, so he's unable to make it. And then Matt's Wi-Fi went down, and then Crenshaw had an emergency. So we had 3 things go wrong literally in the span of 2 hours. So we're still trying to get this together. So I appreciate you jumping on board. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
So there's just a couple more things of NFL news. The other thing is Purdy. So the 49ers are now on their 3rd quarterback, and they're performing without missing a beat at this point. We know that Debo is essentially going to miss the rest of the season. However, they do have CMC, so it's not like they don't have weapons to back him up. But I think it's pretty interesting that Mr. Irrelevant is pretty relevant right now, and is playing at a high level. He is commanding the locker room. The reports are saying that the players say that he's not playing like a rookie. He is demanding respect. What do you think about Purdy playing at a high level and not being so irrelevant?
Well, honestly, if you listen to his coach back at Iowa State, he kind of expected this type of play. And, just looking at it, I didn't expect this type of play from him. I expected him to come in and maybe just not rock the boat. But when Kyle Shanahan called the kind of the out and up for him right before the half against the Tampa Bay Bucks, I knew that then and there that he saw something in him and that he felt like he could be a special player. And he's definitely commanded himself well. Of course, he's made a couple mistakes that, a rookie would make. But other than that, he's been lights out ever since he's been in there. And, that's a good problem to have is too many good quarterbacks.
I agree. I was not expecting it. So I have a lot of 49ers friends in my circle of friends. And almost every single one of them said that they thought that they were going to try to get Baker Mayfield. They did not think that that Purdy was going to lead the way for the rest of the season. And it looks like Purdy not only led the way to give them a win, against the Dolphins and so forth, but he could essentially take them to the promised land. So I just think that's pretty interesting. It is also weird that I have to say that the 49ers are a little cursed in terms of health. They lost Trey Lance. They lost Jimmy G. They lost Debo. And, in previous years, they've had many injuries as well. I don't know. It's a weird question, but it seems like the 49ers and Ravens really have injury issues.
Yeah, they always do. And my thing I would say is that you usually have like calf injuries or groin injuries or stuff like that. That's usually what you have with the 49ers over the last few years. And to me, it makes me question their medical staff because, their medical staff or their strength and training. One of those two is off because there's no way this should happen repeatedly every single year. So to me, I'm questioning their medical staff and I'm questioning their strength and conditioning staff as well because it just doesn't make sense to have this many injuries all the time. But one thing that this does also show, it shows the depth and it shows the great GM acumen of John Lynch for the 49ers.
Okay. I agree, right? Because they're able to figure out how to get players in when the players are hurt and continue. Next man up mentality seems to be alive and well in San Francisco.
Right.
And I will say that it'll be interesting also. Right now, we have lots of teams injured. The Texans are actually fairly injured. We just got the injury report today. There's over 14 players on that list today. We already obviously are having a tough season. We know we're in tank mode, but we do like to look competent, and we're gonna, or at least I like to look competent at the very least. And we're going against the Chiefs, a high-powered offense, and we're not going to have some of our best players, and that includes, which we'll get to that in a moment. But we're not going to have a best corner, a best receiver. So injuries are definitely starting to take hold. And right now it's at the part in the NFL where I think we're coming to that point where we're going to see lots and lots of teams. Really, it's just going to be based on who's healthier. It might take that title, and I think the Eagles have been phenomenally lucky. Cross the fingers just for them. Crossing their fingers that they've been as healthy as they have been.
Right. They definitely have been very healthy. Give or take a couple injuries, but they're going to happen. At this point in the season, everyone's injured. There's no healthy bodies in any teams or organizations at all. But the health is definitely a big thing. They say health is wealth, and the Eagles are definitely living wealthy at the top of the NFC right now. So, I definitely have some thoughts on the Texans and the Chiefs game, but of course, I'll hold those until we kind of get there. But yeah, definitely health is wealth when it comes to NFL, and the most healthy teams usually are the ones that win.
I agree. We'll get one or two more news points, and then we'll get to the recap of last game. So one of the things that I thought was actually kind of scary is during the Patriots game, Devontae Parker was concussed essentially, and Al Galore had to say stop it and to get him out of there. They missed it. The fact that they missed it is kind of concerning. The amount of technology, the amount of replays, the amount of people that are watching this, paid professionals to make sure that this type of stuff does not happen, and it was missed. And it was missed not only by everyone else. It was like the coaching staff as well on the Patriots side didn't stop it either. It was another player. I find that quite concerning. If the NFL is about player safety, how did they miss this? And frankly, I want to know what they're going to do to not do this again. Because if they're missing this, that means that there could be plenty of other things that they've missed in the past.
Well, here's the thing I would like to throw out there. This is in this instance, this is probably the first time they've missed it in maybe a good bit. One thing we often tend to forget is that even though you have technology and all those different things, we have the value of, or the opportunity to have all the technology and those things like that at our disposal when we're watching it at home. When you're on the field, you got big old huge field. You got to keep it on 22 players moving fast and things like that. So I can understand how it can be missed by players and officials and things like that. However, of course, they are under the microscope because of the different things that have happened this year with Tua and other players. So I don't think they're going to change or tighten up anything that they've done. They're going to, of course, give more, I guess, tips and things like that to make sure to pay attention to those different things. But, one person missed out of, a few different things. I know it. I'm not trying to slight Parker's head injury. I'm just saying, one person missed out of I don't know how many people. I think they'll take those odds over missing a boatload of people. Not to slight Parker and his injury, but of course they do need to pay attention and watch everything. But they are human; they will miss things. It's just going to happen. They're never going to be perfect. It just is what it is.
I can understand that. I will say that the one thing that was concerning was because of even the replay of showing it, right? You would think they would have caught it. It wasn't like it was missed and then they showed him being concussed minutes later. They showed that on replay right away, so everyone saw it. And I understand, yes, I do have the luxury of being home and seeing that replay, but you gotta imagine they have to have people also looking at the broadcast video at the same time. But I guess we'll see what happens in the future, if anything.
Yeah, definitely, we will. You do have people watching, but of course, not every single angle will catch every single thing. Unfortunately, it just is not humanly possible.
I agree. So let's get to the recap of the Texans and Cowboys game. So we are essentially an XFL team, and the reason I'm going to say that is we are now quarterback by committee. And that's why I say that. It's because, you're seeing the one QB for passing, one QB for rushing. And, obviously when you go back to Pep's past when he was part of the DC Defenders, and I feel like that's what he went to. I actually thought it was somewhat creative. You get the Cowboys off target. They're not really planning for this. No one was. So you come out of there. It's not just a couple of Wildcats. He's actually out there as a true quarterback for a bit, as opposed to just one or two plays. I do think that was interesting. We kept up throughout most of the game. Frankly, leading by halftime, didn't expect that. I was watching it at the local sports board that I go to every Sunday. And I was sitting right next to Cowboys fans. And for the first time in a long time, I was able to give another team shit while we were playing. That hasn't happened in a very long time. Usually I'm like, yep, we're rebuilding, don't mind us. But I was actually able to talk a little bit of stuff. And then we collapsed. The collapse really, in my opinion, was by Pep Hamilton. And I say that's because of the goal line, right? So we're at the third or fourth yard line on the Cowboys side. Chris Moore misses the touchdown because his knee's down by obviously just 3 or 4 yards, very, very close. Everyone thought he made it. I thought he made it when in real time. So he was obviously down. They didn't challenge it. And I understand why they didn't challenge it, because his knee was down. And then they tried to use Rex Burkhead, who I affectionately call Mr. AARP. And they run him up through the middle. And then when that doesn't work, they try to use Driscoll. And here is the thing that we just found out yesterday, which was very interesting. And I'd like to get your thoughts about the entire game, but I'd like to know your thoughts about this specifically. So the reason why they had Jeff Driscoll try to use that run they were trying to use it on the left. And the reason was that they were watching film, and they said that this was a vulnerability that the Cowboys had previously in the season, and they were trying to mimic what another team did. And that the Cowboys saw what they were trying to do, so Jeff Driscoll couldn't do that. He tried to cut on the inside and only made it a yard. But that was on 4th and goal, right? At that point, you had two choices. You could kick a field goal, and if you kick a field goal, you give Mills or Driscoll, whoever's quarterback at that time, the ability to throw and get Kymie Fairbairn, who was having a great game kicking 50-yard plus field goals, into position to at least tie the game, get you to overtime, and try to win. But they instead tried to use Mr. AARP, a.k.a. Rex Burkhead, then use Driscoll on a play that worked one time against the Cowboys on a 4th and goal. When you know that we have problems putting up points on the board, you walk away from the easy points. And obviously the Cowboys came, and Dak was Dak, and led a 98-yard touchdown. And we were essentially done after that. I'm curious, after I gave my summary, what are your points of the game, and what would you say about that goal line stand that the Cowboys had?
I'll say first off, you could have took the field goal, but I kind of get the thinking in terms of why not take the field goal, because, obviously I don't think he believed his defense could hang on for that much in terms of that part of it, because one thing with the Houston Texans don't necessarily have the strongest pass rush, especially in a 2-minute type of situation. I understand trying to go for it and go ahead and get at least the 2-score advantage. That being said, of course, I don't think I would have ran Rex Burkhead, but at that point in time, I think Dameon Pierce was injured at that point in time. So I totally get you got to try to run it and push it up in there if you're a yard away. And then the other part of it, let me just say this up front. Could you have called different plays? Yes. Could you have done different things? Yes. If that was Dameon Pierce running the football, that probably is a touchdown. But it wasn't. And then also on the other play, Jeff Driscoll. Okay, he's been on a few different teams, but yet he's going to call a play and say, "Hey, well, the play wasn't there, and they knew what we were calling." Isn't it your job to run the play and not actually abort the play if you just because you think it's not there? Does he have that type of power? I don't think he does. Run the play. If it doesn't work, it's on the coach. If you abort the play, you make it look even worse. Right. Just run the play. Run the play. It may have worked, but you never know because you aborted the play. Now, however, I will say, could have been more creative play calling, but, you're only working with so much when it comes to in terms of the Houston Texans and skill position players at this point in time. So, it's kind of a combination of a blame there, but, I kind of get the reasoning why I went for the touchdown as opposed to the field goal.
So I am a dude that likes being aggressive. I do, like, for example, I think Staley's a bit too aggressive. I think that Pep Hamilton is too conservative. I think you should be somewhere in the middle. However, I think for this particular game, I think that he has been poor in his play calling and was too aggressive there. And if I go back to the Browns game, he made bad choices at the goal line again. At the Browns game, he decided to pass 3 times at the goal line. He didn't use Dameon Pierce. We were at the goal line 3 times, and he chose to pass all 3 times.
Can I also address a couple that game too? Because I totally get the throwing it at 3 times and not giving Dameon Pierce there, but 14 of those points were on Kyle Allen. So if that doesn't happen, they're right there in the game with a chance to win it. So there's always I get the not liking the Pep Hamilton calls, and I understand that, but some of this is not necessarily Pep Hamilton. Some of this is the players don't execute what they're supposed to do. So, I don't care who the offensive coordinator is on this team, whether it's Tim Kelly or whether it's, it could be anybody. It could be Kyle Shanahan. I'm not sure he can make it work with this because you just don't have confident quarterback play with Davis Mills. You don't necessarily have consistent offensive line play, and then you don't have consistent weapons show up outside. So in terms of that, he's kind of working with scraps. I'm not saying he's necessarily been perfect with everything he's doing, but, when you don't have any horses in the battle, it's kind of hard. And unfortunately, it might cost either him or Lovey his job, which, honestly, I would be looking at the man sitting upstairs who put these players in place more than the actual staff that's actually trying to coach this team.
That's a fair point. And, unfortunately, Leo got sick, and that would probably be his number one argument, which is that, you're trying to judge a coaching staff without really any real talent on the team, sans 5 or 6 players. And it's a fair point. The thing is, with us, one bad play will cost us everything. One bad penalty will cost us everything. And so, of course, we're going to have to see when the fault of it is not the roster, because the roster is what the roster is. You can't change that. The only thing you can change, however, is the coaching and the play calling. That's all you can change, right?
I'll tell you this. Although I understand what you're saying, and I totally understand it, you're asking a coach to have a perfect game every game with this team. And to me, because they're in this situation, that's the fault of the GM. that is mainly the fault of the GM, because this team, since he has taken over, has gotten worse every single year. And I don't have trust enough in him that he's actually going to make the right picks coming into this next draft, because you have holes at the front 4. You have holes there. You have holes at your linebacker spot. Your secondary, that's pretty solid, but you may want to still draft some pieces there. Your wide receiver, you need some more playmakers. I know John Mechie coming back will help. Tight end, you basically say you have nobody there. And offensive line, you still have issues there. And that issue has gotten worse and worse. And most of all, you got quarterback. So to me, honestly, he's broken this team down to the studs, and he's still looking at studs right now. I have a hard time wanting to fire Lovey or to fire Pep Hamilton when they're dealing with studs and trying to actually put an actual family in a home that's basically studs. So essentially, it's going to rain or it's going to pour or it's going to do whatever they do. But I totally understand the frustration with play calling, and not saying I don't. But I just to me, it's way too early to be like, okay, we're just throwing all this away. And then it's also going to look very ugly. You're firing another coach 1 year after hiring him. So that would look ugly too. So at that point, I don't think Lovey's going anywhere. Maybe Pep does, but I don't think Lovey's going anywhere.
So it's good that you brought that up. And I know this wasn't necessarily on the agenda, but since we were talking about it, I will have to bring this up. So I am of the mindset that Pep has to go, that Lovey may stay for PR and marketing reasons, and frankly, because he wasn't necessarily given a fair shot. And although I do completely understand what you're saying from the standpoint of that any OC would have a hard time here, the difference isn't just a play calling, it's also the personnel. So, for example, Nick Cassera has been trying to put talent on the roster. We have brought Tyron Johnson, very close names, I know, but Johnson and Johnson. We've had both of them come and try to do something. They play very few snaps. A few weeks later, they get cut. We've done that to Benjamin. We've done that about 6 or 7 times. And this has been my running joke on Twitter, which is that Pep Hamilton has a cookbook and he needs his players to marinate for 2 to 3 weeks so they're very, very tender. Because other players, when they're picked up on the waiver wire, they play they play that same week. But on offense, that is not the case. Whenever we pick up a player on the waiver wire, it's at least 2 to 3 weeks in order to see a player even get a snap, and then you might not see anything, and all of a sudden they're cut. And then it's rinse, repeat, and try the same thing. And if Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks weren't hurt, we would have never seen Amari Rodgers have that 57-yard game with a touchdown. So it's the personnel that options that he's choosing as well. It's not just the play calling. And Nick Casario has been trying to make the team better.
I hear you there, but I wouldn't say that any of the Johnsons, the Johnson and Johnson combo would have made it any better. Now Amari Rodgers, he's getting an opportunity, but he blew that opportunity with Aaron Rodgers to get on the field because he couldn't catch the ball consistently. So, I hear you with trying to bring in talent, but if Nick Casario was really trying to bring in talent, he did that during the draft, free agency, and other parts of the season. Bringing in talent now on a 1-11 team is like trying to put a Band-Aid on a gashing wound. It's just not going to help anything.
Okay. The only other thing I'll say in defense of that, because I'm a kind of a big Nick defender, and what I'll say is that we also just had really bad luck, right? Like Mechie got cancer. Who would have thought that was going to happen? So you have your speedy guy that was supposed to, take on those hot routes, help Mills out, not available. You had Kenyon Green, who he drafted, but was injured all the way up through camp and started late. Couldn't even start the first game, even though he was a first-round pick, because of a knee injury. That was not the issue pre-draft. Christian Harris had a hamstring injury. He didn't have that pre-draft. It happened in the offseason. That's when it was found out. Tegan Quintariano, I can never pronounce his name. I always call him Quentin Tarantino, the tight end. He had a knee injury. Now, that was something that was somewhat known, but they didn't know how big of a deal that was. Deshaun Hamilton, we brought him here, and he's been hurt up until just a month ago. Now he just got picked up by another team. Forgot who. Someone just picked him up today. So we've also just had a ton of bad luck in terms of players that we brought on. Stingley, for example. Stingley was still rehabbing. Now you can say, well, the argument is you should have taken Sauce. That's a fair argument there. But even Stingley was rehabbing way longer than they actually thought. So we just had a ton of bad luck in terms of injuries and health. And it didn't help the production, and it didn't help the rookies to get up to speed. And of course, now that we're hurt with Damian Pierce, and like I said, our injury report is now 14 players long. So we've had a ton of bad luck at the same time. And then the last in defense of Nick Casario before we get to the Texans-Chiefs game is, and I'll obviously allow you to give your comment on that, which is that he wasn't able to hire Lovey. We had Aaron Wilson on the show. And Aaron Wilson pretty much said that Cal put the kibosh on who they wanted. So it seems like Brian Flores was his guy before the lawsuit. When the lawsuit happened, they moved to Josh McCown. Cal didn't want to fire David Culley because of the PR issue of finding a black coach, and then putting an inexperienced young white assistant high school associate head coach in position.
Oh boy!
And Cal said, "Nope, hire someone with experience," and then put Lovey in there. So I know a lot of people give grief about Lovey Smith, but that wasn't his choice. He had to go along for the ride because of what was going on in the front office and the entire Kyle Brandt, someone I respect a ton. So it's not even just shock jocks or anything talking about this. These are well-respected individuals. We're saying the Texans look like they're racist. They're making decisions to get black coaches off of their team. They fired David Culley, and now they're looking at Josh McCown. That was the mantra. And then they go back to the whole Bob McNair story with, you can't have the inmates run the prison and all this stuff. And I think Cal said, this has got to stop. I need to make sure that we're not looked at this way.
Yeah, I get you there, but honestly, if they hired Josh McCown, they probably would look worse than they do now. I mean, think of Jeff Saturday, and just think of that with the Houston Texans. Now, boy, oh boy, I don't think Kyle McNair would be able to make it to his car without hearing it from everybody if that was the case. But I get it. He wasn't able to pick his guy, but his guy would have probably got him fired quicker if that was the case, in my opinion. And then also, you speak of the injuries and things like that. There was a team that actually is in the division that was 12-5 that used the most players in NFL history last year and still was 12-5. So to me, it's not more about the injuries and the bad luck. It's about what kind of players are you bringing in? Are you checking out these players? Have you, because that's the thing with the Titans and Titans have done is, a lot of the players that they bring in, they kind of, make sure they are the type of guys that fit the system that Mike Vrabel has. And I wonder in my mind, does he even know what kind of system he's trying to put in? Now, I've heard a lot about him trying to make it the Patriots of the South. And I'm like, in my opinion, why don't you just make it the Houston Texans of Houston and quit trying to be the Patriots of the South, because there's no duplication of Bill Belichick. He is who he is. Right. You be Nick Caserio and you be the Houston Texans and you call it a day doing that. To me, that's where I think he's kind of missed the boat on this, and he's eventually going to be fired down there. I give him maybe 2 more years and he'll be fired.
The only reason I disagree is just from the personal standpoint of Bob McNair loved Nick. He was trying to get Nick in Houston before he died. And I just can't see that Cal getting rid of Nick, because he almost views it as, well, this is the last guy my father wanted to run the org, So I think Nick holds on to people for far too long. We saw how long he held on to Jack Easterby, even when the whole world was telling him to get rid of him. And I think that he will wait far too long, even if Nick is issue, which I don't think he is. I don't think he'll get rid of Nick simply because of that personal bond or feeling that he has towards him, as opposed to just thinking about the product on the field. But,
that's on DC, right?
Yeah, we shall see. But I know you have a lot of things to say about the Texans-Chiefs game, so I'm going to let you go first here and give your thoughts.
All right. As far as the Texans and the Chiefs, I mean, honestly, it's a mismatch on paper. It's going to be one. It is what it is. But the one thing I will say is that, the Texans, again, they're not horrible when it comes to their secondary. They got Steven Nelson out there. They do got a safety in Petrie, which I definitely love that guy. Stingley, and of course, he's dealing with injuries, so you don't know if he's going to play or not. But they do have some players in that secondary, and the Chiefs like to pass the football. So if they're able to, kind of throw a few things at them defensively when it comes to their secondary, then you can make some things happen. However, I will say that Kelsey up the seam may be an issue, especially with they're doing the cover 2. Right. Rushing the passer, they're going to have a big game out of Jerry Hughes. I know Jerry Hughes had one game to start the season, but he's going to have another. I like Jerry Hughes. He's just hanging on like too long, in my opinion. It's just over. He should be a rotational guy and not an actual guy that's out there, leading your defense on the field, to me, in my opinion. But it is what it is at that point. But they're going to need some plays out of their defense. They're going to need at least 2 to 3 turnovers. And I will tell you, if you watch the last game versus the Broncos, where the Chiefs had, they will give you the football. They're going to give you about 5 chances. Patrick Mahomes is going to give you 5 chances to make a play. Now, what you do with that is on you. But if you take advantage of those plays, who knows? You might be able to give your offense something to deal with. Now, at the Chiefs defensively, they're 25th in the NFL. 25th. So they're going to give you chances, even if it's not Dameon Pierce back there on the football. There's going to be somebody. A couple screens, a couple different things like that. Attack them deep. I mean, throw caution to the wind if you're an offense. Go for it, and we'll see what happens. And I think that, for a little bit, maybe this game will be close. Now, do I think the Chiefs are going to win this game? Yes. Do I think it'll be a big margin? Probably not early, but maybe later, just because of the depth issue. And can the Texans keep up doing the different things that they're going to do to stay in the game? Kind of a la the Dallas Cowboys game.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, that's actually pretty decent. Here's what I think right now, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, we're not going to have, obviously, Dameon Pierce, but we are going to have Rex Burkhead. I hope they give Dare a couple of shots as well, because Dare has shown that he can run the ball. And he's also a pass catching back. Rex isn't the only one that can catch. So I hope they give a bunch of stuff to Dare, but if they start running a lot of stuff with Rex Burkhead, the problem is he gets stuffed a lot. So we're looking at a lot of negative yards that whatever quarterback that's under center, whether it's Driscoll or Mills, are going to have to make up those negative yards. That's the biggest issue that I see, because Pep is going to try to run the ball with Rex. We know that. Now the question is, can whatever quarterback make up his losses? That's the first thing. On defense, I think that Petrie may have another great game. He had an excellent game against the Cowboys. He was there. I mean, just about on every play. When you saw that goal line stand where he stopped Pollard, I mean that was great. Says Ezekiel Pollard. I can't even remember off the top of my head anymore. But it was the goal line stand where he stopped the run. That was just fantastic. He is like a heat-seeking missile, and he is not afraid of contact. And he has been really, honestly, my favorite player, even more than Dameon Pierce. He is my favorite player on the squad. It's why I flew down to Houston to see the Browns game, and right after that game, I went into the team store and got his jersey because I was so proud of intercepting Deshaun Watson. So, among the other things that he did. So I do believe that he could have a great game. Now, like you mentioned, we won't have Stingley there, but Nelson is no slouch. Nelson can hold up his own. So on the defensive side, if they're going to pass the ball, we can take some advantage of that. He had Mahomes had 3 interceptions against Denver, and if he has 2, if we can take advantage of 2, we have a shot at least to do something before the half. This is where things fall apart. This is what's happening throughout the season, is that the third or fourth quarter, particularly the fourth quarter, is when we essentially fall apart. Even if we start looking good the first, second, third quarter, the fourth quarter, for whatever reason, we cannot finish. Right? That's what she said. So we're talking like if you look at even like the Colts game, we did really well up until the fourth quarter, and obviously you look at the Cowboys game. This has been consistent. The Broncos game, the same thing. The Bears game. I mean, I can go on and on. Every single time, what we see is that we fail in the fourth quarter, and that's what I fear is going to happen here for the Chiefs. What's going on, Crenshaw?
What's the deal, man? What's the deal?
What's going on?
What's going on, man? What's going on?
Chilling.
Good. Glad you could join us. We're on the Texans and Chiefs. We talked about the Cowboys games and NFL news, and we're just talking about what our predictions are here. So you want to throw out your prediction and what problems we'll see and what good things you might see?
Prediction, Justin Reed revenge game. He's going to go off on us. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's going to be another loss, but I think they're going to be more competitive like they was against the Cowboys. Because last week, I thought it was going to run away with Denver, Kansas City, but Denver came back on and made a great game. So I think it's going to be pretty much the same. I think the spread is 14, I think, right now. And last week, we was, 17.5 against the Cowboys team. So, but I think, typical Texans make it look good. Fourth quarter, Pep Ham's going to figure out, okay, I don't know how to call plays. I'm going to give it to Rex Burkhead 3 times and, another loss.
Well, I got to interrupt you for a second and just say, if you wouldn't mind, something is up staticky with whatever you're using. I don't know if it's the AirPods or what, but I don't know if you can just clean that up. If you want to just jump right back on, that would be cool.
Gotcha.
Thanks, man. But I actually agree with Crenshaw's, and I think you're pretty much saying the same thing too, Mike, that we will be able to put out a decent product on the field, I think, for the first half at the very least. I think that it won't be as successful as the Cowboys because the Chiefs are now prepared to have the XFL version of the Texans with the two QB by committee. So I don't think it's going to be as successful, but I do think it is hard to prep for that.
Definitely.
So I think that's going to be part of success is having that dual quarterback system here. It's a matter of, again, can we finish? Now, the other thing is this could be a total trap game, right? We're a one-win team. We're going against one of the highest high-powered offense. Yeah, as you mentioned, they don't have a great defense, but their offense is fantastic. Could it be a trap game? Could it be a situation where we are actually able to put up a decent amount of points that they can't recover from? That's, to me, is that a possibility? I don't know, but a boy can dream.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be an interesting game to me. I definitely am a big fan of Jalen Petree's, being that I did play safety in college. So, that's, definitely a position I pay attention to a lot. So I'm rooting for him to play well, but, eventually in the end, the talent depth will eventually not favor the Texans in this game.
Okay. Coach, any last words on the Texans and Chiefs game besides what you said?
Just make it a competitive game, guys. That's about it.
Okay. All right. So we're going to end it shortly. I'm going to do the hot takes, but I want to know, actually, since we have Mike here, I want to get your hot take, not just on the Texans. I want to get your hot take on the Titans and the AFC South. What I want to know is, do you think that you're going to come away with the divisional win, or do you think the Jags are going to take it?
Honestly, I still think the Titans will win this division. I don't think the Jaguars will win this division. Here's why I don't think that is because, of course, they played well last week, but they still are the Jaguars. And, they still are going to stumble and stump their toe somewhere because we all thought they were making it when they were 2-1. Then they came back and beat the Baltimore Ravens, and they beat the Titans. And then, whatever happened after those games is, remember the 40-14 loss to the Detroit Lions? Yeah, that happened after they beat the Ravens. So I can expect them to have another one of those games down the stretch of the season, in my opinion. So, the Titans will win the division. And, I'll go ahead and say it. I think the Titans, if Danico Autry is back this week, which he's been out missing the last 3 games or 2 or 3 games with a knee injury, if he's back this week, I expect the Titans to beat the Los Angeles Chargers. Okay.
All right. My hot take is I actually think that the Jaguars could win this division. I think that Lawrence has hit his stride. I hate that I have to say that, but I do think that he has. I mean, he had over 360 yards, 3 TDs, no interceptions last game. He seems like, yes, he's very inconsistent, but you're seeing why he's the first overall pick. And if Evan Ingram, who I think is a fumble, not just a fumble queen, but a lot of drop passes, had an incredible game. So, Christian Kirk is basically non-existent. They're what did we have? 40, 50 yards last game? At most?
Well, he still is their leading wide receiver, so let's not get it twisted now.
Okay, so non-existence is probably a little of an exaggeration, but he's not getting 125 yards.
No, he's definitely not doing that. No, not every game.
So what I think is that the Jaguars have a shot. Is it a long shot? Absolutely, it's a long shot. But I think they do have a shot. And my hot take is that they actually win this division. And I'm going to have to listen to Sam and the rest of the Jaguars fans on the AFC South battle for the entire offseason if they win this division.
Well, you won't have to hear them too long because they'll lose in the first round if they win the division.
Crenshaw, what's your hot take?
I don't got a hot take. I just got a couple of questions for Mike, but I don't think the Jazz can win the division. They got to win out to win the division, so I think
Right.
Tennessee's got this in the bag right there, easy. But Mike, 3 questions. All right, 1, how long do you think this Tennessee run is going to last? 2, do you think Vrabel is going to do what B.O.B. did here with the GM role? And 3, if you was the GM of the Texans with the number 1 pick, who would you choose?
All right. I'm writing these down to make sure I answer all of them. Okay. Now, as far as Tennessee, all right, the Tennessee run. Honestly, it's probably going to end next year, but because honestly, I thought it was going to end this year, and I thought the Colts would win the division and they would be a wild card. I was completely and utterly wrong on that. So I think next year it'll end. There'll be a wild card. Malik, I think Malik will be the starting quarterback next year, in my opinion. So yeah, there'll probably be a wild card next year. That's the end of their run, and I think the Jags might mess around and win the division next year. Yeah, I know that's pretty much a hot take right there. But as far as Vrabel and wanting to be the GM, I don't think Vrabel wants that position. Do I think he's going to have more, kind of talk in the players that they get picked up? Probably, but I don't think he wants that position. So I think he's just going to stay the coach and just call it a day at that. So, I'll tell you what though, I've been out there at a few practices. I went out there during a training camp. That's one big man, and he definitely gets involved in every drill with all the different players, which I'm like, how does he have the energy? But hey, it is what it is. But as far as the Texans, if I was the GM of the Texans and I had the number 1 overall pick, I am picking Young out of Alabama. Here's why I'm picking Young out of Alabama. I'll tell you why. C.J. Stroud. Like C.J. Stroud, I think he's a talented quarterback. However, if you noticed, when he got pressure put on him, he folded like a cheap tent. He couldn't stand in the pocket and throw the football. He was running and tripping over his feet. I'm like, okay, this is not a guy that when pressure is on me, I can be like, okay, cool. I can handle this. He can't maneuver the pocket like that and make it happen. With Bryce Young, I mean, you saw in the Texas game, he's been dealing with a pretty suspect Alabama offensive line all season and still making plays. I mean, he ducked up under a guy that tried to sack him this year and ran down the sideline versus Texas. So, to me, I know he's a smaller in stature guy, but he has the arm, he has the ability, he can throw from all different angles, and he can run a little bit. To me, I think I kind of reckon him to maybe a little bit smarter, or I would say not necessarily smarter, but more of a football acumen in terms of a version of Kyler Murray. That's what I kind of compare him to. So if you got that type of guy with a very good football acumen, I think you have a good building block. However, unfortunately, here's where I'm going to talk about Nick Caserio again. I'm sorry, man. I don't think Nick Caserio is going to put all the pieces around him before he gets fired. And I think Nick Caserio is going to get fired because eventually they're going to stop looking around at all the other different pieces and be like, hey, you upstairs, you're making these picks and the selections, and it ain't panning out. So, hey, you got to go. But that's just me. I don't think Nick Caserio is the guy because he's trying to force Patriots way on Houston. Just call it the Houston Texans way and call it a day. That just bothers me. It really does bother me about him because I'm like, dude, I need you to find your own identity, not try to clone Bill Belichick's identity. Because look at all around the NFL, I don't think cloning his identity has worked. It didn't work for Romeo Crennel. It didn't work for Josh. It ain't working for Josh McDaniels right now. It didn't work for Charlie Weiss either, and that was at Notre Dame. So the only one it's actually working for is a particular gentleman in Nashville. That's it.
Yeah. I like that. VT, he's not on the Bryce Young train. He doesn't Bryce Young. I don't know why, but
I'm sure. I mean, he sees my posts. I mean, I posted the AFC South quite a bit. I'm sure he knows I'm a big Taylor Buildings fan. And
Big who? I'm sorry.
Caleb Williams.
Oh
So-
yeah.
So huge.
He can't come out this year though.
He's not coming out this year. So here is my take. And Crenshaw, in case you're wondering, I'm only muting you because for whatever reason it seems like an echo. So I'm just gonna keep doing it until you're talking. So that's the only reason. But here's my strategy. My strategy is we trade down the first pick instead of taking the first pick. You trade down and then you take Anthony Richardson. Why? Well, Anthony Richardson is an athletic freak, right? I love your face right there. He's an athletic freak who most likely will have some amazing numbers in the combine. Now, you know he's a huge project. He's athletic, but his consistency is horrible, right? He's like under 56, 57% completion rate. He is a huge project, but he's like a project and where he could potentially be another Josh Allen, right? So here is why I say you take him. You trade down and you stack up picks. When you stack up enough picks, you'll have another pick in 2024, at least a first and a second. You'll get that. Then you trade down. So you'll have a bunch of second rounders. You'll have another first rounder. With that, you can actually get, because we're on the money picks typically, they're in the second round typically. So you stack up a lot of second round picks. And then because you're trading down, you'll be able to fill up. We have 15 holes. Well, you can fill up a good 10 to 11, if not, around there of them in this particular draft. You take Anthony Richardson, you get a new coach, you get a new OC, and now you try to evaluate him and say, hey, for example, say if we got the quarterback coach from the Eagles, Brian Johnson. You put Anthony Richardson in a heavy RPO scheme, and you have Damian Pierce, and you get another running back, and now you're a heavy run team. And while he's working on developing his passing game, that's how you start building out. And you look at that and say, well, is this a dude that you can develop, or is this a dude that is simply going to collapse? Now, you make the decision in 2024, and you say, after a year of seeing this dude, is this someone that's going to be a project for us, or did we do bad enough where we can trade up and get Caleb Williams? And you get Caleb Williams then, and then you have Anthony Richardson that you can use as an asset to trade away for, say, a second round pick. And now you have, and the whole thing is you have your safety net. You have Richardson as your project if you can't get Caleb, but in 2024 you can actually get the guy, which in my opinion, not just my opinion, he's a consensus best quarterback in college. And now you really have your team built. You built your team up in 2023. You go get Caleb in 2024. You build you build around him in the offseason as well as that draft. And I think you almost have like a perfect situation in 2024.
I got some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
When you're drafting Anthony Richardson, are you drafting him in the first round, or are you drafting me in the second or third round?
I think he's going to be in the first. So I think after the combine, he's going to be a top pick.
No, okay. All right, got that one. Now, the second one, you said an RPO type scheme having two running backs. Okay, I get that one. So here's what I gather from what you told me. I'm just, this is what I gather.
Okay.
And I totally get your plan. But if you draft Anthony Richardson in the first round and you decide he's not the quarterback for you and you go get Caleb Williams, do you think any other team is going to see that and bet on that and actually give you picks that you want for that? Nah, I don't think they will. They'll wait on you to release him since he's on his rookie deal and then go pick him up at that point. Or if you do trade him, you're probably not going to get but maybe a fourth or fifth round pick potentially for him, which may end up potentially being a starter or not. That's just thinking out loud. And then also, if you're running an RPO scheme, aren't you essentially trying to make a run-heavy scheme? Aren't you essentially trying to make this man Tim Tebow again?
So,
in a sense?
All right. So to the first question, I think that you can trade him, for example, on draft day, which I think is a great time if you're getting rid of Anthony Richardson. That is a great time to actually get rid of him, not necessarily before the draft and so forth. So I think you make that decision on draft day, and you have someone that is hungry for him. For example, I think if we do what we do and the Giants aren't where they want to be because they look like they're kind of collapsing at the end of their season, that I don't think they're going to have the ability to trade up enough to get Anthony Richardson, but they could give their pick to us. So even if it's a third rounder, that's still an asset. And at the same time, the whole point is that you now have a safety net. One of the biggest issues that people have about taking Caleb Williams is, what if you can't find anyone? Now you're stuck without a quarterback. You're in quarterback lingo. Well, the thing is, you have Anthony Richardson. Yeah, he's a project. It could take 3 to 4 years to actually build up, but you got somebody. The point is, you see if he can develop really quickly and you keep him, and if you can't, you go get your guy. And if you and the thing is, now you're protected from either way. But at the same time, you're now building around him. You're building around him. Now, Caleb is another athletic freak, except he can pass. So now you're building up a scheme where it would work for both Anthony Richardson or Caleb Williams or even Drake May. And now you have a system where you have, whether if it's Caleb or Drake, a great passer and someone that can use their legs. So basically everyone involved would be able to work on that scheme. And if Anthony Richardson is able to develop and become the passer that, like another Josh Allen, you keep him. And there you go. So I think that's almost like a scenario where you play your best hand now, knowing what your hand's going to be in the future.
Gotcha. I totally understand what you're saying. I don't agree with it, but hey, hey, it is what it is. And then also, I will tell you this. I know you said you snuck in the new offensive coordinator, new head coach. Both of them things ain't happening. I'm just gonna tell you. I think Lovey will still be there. If anything, Pep will get fired. But to me, honestly, you're asking them to make a gourmet meal with scraps every Sunday. So. Hey, it is what it is, and that's just my thoughts. But hey, I respect your thoughts. I just disagree with them.
Fair enough. Crenshaw, do you have anything to add before we end the show?
No, I don't agree with nothing you just said with Anthony Richardson. It makes zero sense to draft a guy in the first round and then the next year draft another guy in the first round as a quarterback. It makes zero sense. I mean,
didn't Arizona do just that?
But they did that. He was Josh Rosen was 10th and Kyler Murray was 1.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But Josh Rosen wasn't good though. At all.
And that
it was a reach. I don't know why they drafted him. It was just a reach. But I don't know. I don't like that.
Richards isn't good, you get Caleb. If he is, you keep him. It's really, I think it's that.
What did they get for him when they traded him? Did they get something for him?
I don't remember off the top of my head, honestly. But yeah, they did get something for him. But it wasn't. In my memory, it wasn't anything great. It was a late round pick, I believe.
Right, and that's essentially what you could be falling into with Anthony Richardson as well. I had one other point, but I just cannot remember it right now. But I will tell you this: you have a lot more faith in Nick Caserio than probably anybody that I know. Because honestly, I don't believe in him at all. Any man that is in the booth and has to hear the plays that his coach is calling, you need to be on the sideline if you're doing that. You don't need to be up there being the GM. Because it's almost like you try to sabotage that. It looks like you tried to sabotage that man. And now you got Lovey out here, and you got Pep Hamilton out here trying to make gourmet meals out of scraps. But I just, I don't know. I don't have great feelings for Nick Caserio, and I do not think it's going to work. No matter if he fires the whole staff and brings a whole new staff in, or if he keeps the staff, or if he fires Pep, Nick Caserio will not be successful as a GM for the Houston Texans. In my opinion, I don't see it. But hey, I respect your opinion. I just don't see it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't see it.
All right. I would say I disagree, but it is what it is. We'll see in a couple of years. I'll have to have you back on and see what happens.
Definitely. I'll be around.
Why don't you tell everyone where you can find all of your writings and your podcasts and so forth?
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. You can find me on Touring the AFC South on your podcast airwaves. So it'd be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, I'm there. I got Teron Davenport coming up next to talk about this 3-game slide of the Tennessee Titans. So that'll be quite interesting to go into. But yeah, I got a few things going there. And of course, with the freelance journalist work, honestly, it can pop up anywhere. So if you stay tuned to my timeline on Twitter, you'll probably see it.
All right. Crenshaw, why don't you tell these good people where they can find all your stuff?
You can find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw. Everywhere. I'm all over.
Trademarked.
You say he's worldwide. He's worldwide.
Worldwide.
There you go.
Guys, you can find me at Brown Chubby Bear on Twitter. You can find me on Reddit on Chubby Brown Bear. You can also find my blogs and articles at TexansFanBattle.com. I'm working an article right now, and the article is all about why Pep Hamilton and Lovie Smith should be fired. Should be out tomorrow in the afternoon. Check my timeline for that blog post. I appreciate Mike for being with us. And as always, go Texans.
Go Texans.
You can say go
Thank you all
Titans.
for having me.